Good news, Micro Center came through for us and got us a retail version of the 3950X from AMD, the Ryzen 9 that apparently right now is creating quite the splash in the CPU space. But we're not building with this guy today, oh no. We are going all the way to the 3970X, the new 32 core, 64 thread, 144 megabytes of cache behemoth that is gonna be putting in some serious duty today. Well, I guess from moving forward, because this is gonna be rendering all of our videos in the future. Maybe even this one, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The amount of processing power that is being held in my hands right now is insane because of AMD's 16 core, 32 thread mainstream desktop processor, which may or may not become my new daily driver here at the office. I haven't decided yet, but we've got both of the new Ryzens here, the 3960X and the 3970X. So the 3970X, as I already said, has 32 cores, 64 threads, a bajillion PCIe lanes. We're gonna set aside the 60X for now because I don't know what we're gonna do with that one yet. We're gonna talk about some parts right here because we are building Phil a new editing rig. When he first started here, he was running off a 1920X that we built off a first gen Threadripper. It's just a graphics card, it's just a 2080 Ti. But he was running off a 1920X first gen Threadripper because my 1950X was used in my Symbiote build, and that's still put together and just sitting on display. But anyway, I digress, that's besides the point. So he, probably for the first 6 months of working here, if not more, exclusively edited off of Threadripper. Now the amount of processing power that that had with software that can leverage multi-threading, Adobe not necessarily being one of them, was absolutely insane. But what was also insane was the amount of quirks, early adopter, bleeding edge technology bugs that sort of came along with that, including updating the BIOS and constantly having weird like USB disconnects and just random wonkiness that forced Phil to go back to what he was familiar with, which was Intel. So for the last, well, over 6 months now, Phil has been editing specifically and exclusively off of a 9900K overclocked to 5 gigahertz because of QuickSync. Now QuickSync is just, we've talked about it in the past, but basically it allows us to use the iGPU that's inside of an Intel CPU as a dedicated H.264 encoder. So with that comes a lot more speed when it comes to encoding with a little bit of quality loss. A lot of you have never even noticed. But what we're gonna do today is we are gonna now leave that rig fully intact as it sits, because what we wanna see is whether or not we can brute force our way past the rendering speed of that system while keeping the quality of full hardware encoding. So that's what we're gonna be doing here today. So using our 3970X and all of those cores, clock speed's important with Adobe. So I'm a little bit, I don't wanna say concerned, but I'm definitely curious as to how this is gonna turn out because we know that Ryzen does not clock as high as Intel. And with Phil running at 5 gigahertz on his 9900K, although that's only, what? How many cores is that? 8 cores, 16 thread? Yeah, and this being twice the number of cores, then that has threads, and 4 times the number of threads than this has, that's gonna be pretty insane. I think I mathed that right. Whatever, I digress. So the rest of the parts, we are also kicking that off here with the ROG Zenith 2 Extreme. Jeez, this thing is heavy. This is the second version of the board that was used in my Symbiote build. So we're using that. This was part of the AMD package that was sent over. We are also gonna be pairing that with 64 gigabytes. I think this is stepping it up. I think you have 32 gigs now on your 9900K rig. So you're gonna have twice as much memory, faster memory at that, and all the RGB goodness that goes along with it. But this is the new Dominator stuff from Corsair. So it uses the Capellix LEDs, which use a lot less power, which make it better for clocking. In terms of graphics card, this is the EVGA GeForce 2080 Ti XC. This is a Founders Edition PCB, basically. Reference PCB, and the reason why we're doing that is for a couple of reasons. One, the XC Ultra is a triple slot card, so it has a crazy big plate on it, where this just uses the standard double, which is perfectly fine. But because we are also introducing our sponsor for this particular build, Phanteks, we are using their 2080 Ti block right here. This is part of their Glacier series. We're also gonna be cooling our Threadripper with their C399A Threadripper block. And this is gonna be exciting to show you guys. It is massive. The amount of heat fins that are on this, or in terms of the heatsink fins for the actual jet plate, are insane, as could be the temperatures with this CPU. So that's why we are obviously gonna be water cooling this. When it comes to storage though, we've got So this is just a scratch drive. This is a Kingston SSD now. This is what Phil edits the footage on, and then he then exports it off to a different drive. And then he doesn't run his operating system or Adobe off this drive either. This is just for handling the footage, the raw footage. Our main drive on this is going to be a Corsair MP600 1 terabyte. And the reason for this is a true PCIe Gen 4 SSD, giving us significant improvement in read-write speed over even PCIe Gen 3. And then for our mass storage, and what Phil's using for backups and such, is two 10 terabyte Ironworf drives, which are the same drives that we have running in our NAS. So he basically backs up all of his stuff onto here and then backs it up from here also onto our NAS. So he's kind of got redundant backup not only on his own machine, because these are mirrored, these are backups of each other, we also back all of it up onto the server. So it's kind of like triple redundancy. Listen to Phil and don't do what I do, because nothing's backed up on my machine, and I am connected to the NAS. I'm just dumb. So don't do what I do what Phil does. He does it right. That's why I hired him. When it comes to keeping things cool in our chassis, we've got 15 Light Loop 120 fans from Corsair right here. Don't know if we'll need all 15, but I've got plenty of them. We've got a Commander Pro to link them all together. Phil is a fan of RGB, because Phil understands that RGB gives you the freedom to make it whatever color you want. You can ignore the marketing behind it, and you don't have to be all salty about it. Embrace the RGB, embrace the color choice. And we've got up to 15 of those, which should be plenty. In terms of our reservoir, I'm not running the Phanteks reservoir combo that they gave us because it uses a Lang DDC pump. I don't have a DDC pump here, so I'm not able to use that. We showed that in a previous video when we kind of did the a little unboxing of it. But what I'm using instead is our Singularity computer Protium reservoir, which I think is going to look great in here. The one that I wasn't sure if I was going to use in my personal rig or not, which we've decided to just use in this rig. But we've also got the extended reservoir to make it taller, make the capacity bigger, and kind of fill out this case a little bit better, because we are also using the former Enthoo Luxe 2, now just being known as the Enthoo 719. They kind of did a bit of a name change on this. So keep that in mind. You're gonna see Luxe 2 all over this, but they did change the name on this. In terms of radiators, I haven't decided what I'm gonna use yet. It can mount up to 4 480 millimeter radiators, which I sort of showed and got all freaked out about in our review of that. But I haven't decided how I wanna do the radiators on this yet, so I might use multiple 360s, I might use a single 480, I don't know yet. We'll just sort of figure that out as we go. So what do you say we just sort of go ahead and start building and see what we end up with.
It happened again?
Surely the package right here. Wasn't I just saying, is there anything weird about this box?
I was literally also about to say, you have a history with Threadripper boxes too, so maybe this will be different.
Well, there it is in all of its beauty and all of its orange goodness. We kept orange for 2 reasons. One, Phil's current rig is set up with all orange lighting and stuff. It's still together. We didn't take anything out of there except for the scratch disc and the other drives right there. But because Threadripper's colors are orange, I think we nailed it. I think that build definitely is reminiscent of Ryzen Threadripper right there. I've only got a couple of numbers to show you here in terms of overclocks, really quick overclocks, as well as some benchmarks, because today's video was not about giving you guys a review. Today's video was taking you along for the ride of building the system that we are now going to use daily to give you a long-term review. So now that Ryzen has sort of aerated like a fine wine, and it's now gotten its flavor, 3rd gen Threadripper based off of Ryzen, we expect to be really, really good based on what we've seen with mainstream Ryzen. Now, the 3970X, 32 cores, 64 threads. You can see right now it's idling at 36C. I don't know if Phil can see in there, but there is as with all the ROG boards, there is an OLED display on there, which is giving you various readouts, and you can adjust that with software, but that's not the point of today's video. It's currently idling at 35C. Now that's important because we do have it running 4.2 gigahertz all core, precision boost enabled, CPU enhancement on, all that stuff. But we found that we kind of hit the same wall at 4.2 gigahertz as we found on desktop or mainstream, where at 4.3 and above, it just gets all kinds of wonky. So we just pulled it back to 4.2 all core, overclocked the memory from 3600 to 3800, only 200 megahertz, but overclocked the F clock or the fabric clock from whatever the auto setting was to 1800 megahertz, which is where we found we got the best results on mainstream stuff when we were testing the 3900X. On Cinebench R15, not a good test for the CPU, by the way. Out of the box, we got a 7392. That is approximately 192 points higher than my W3175X 28 core, 56 thread, so almost as many cores. Intel CPU on the Dominus motherboard, overclocked to 5 gigahertz, running on frozen or ice water through our ice bucket challenge thing when we were doing the overclock competition with Steve. That's a $3,000 CPU. This one is significantly cheaper. In fact, I'll have Phil put the price right here because I forgot off the top of my head. The 7919 was before we touched the memory. Then I got an 8005 and an 8026 by overclocking the memory 200 megahertz and then overclocking the fabric clock. R15, however, is not a very good test for this because it runs too quickly. Allow me to demonstrate. You get massive fluctuations with the scores because the test is over too quickly for it to truly calculate the score properly. I mean, there was a 7,930, but look, I mean, how long does that test take? 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5 seconds. 5 seconds. There was a day where that used to take a minute. Now, if we go ahead and go over here to R20, which is, and I'm showing you guys these scores because you could download these tests for free, these benchmarks, and compare to your own systems. So out of the box, we got 17,377, and then overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz, which it shows right there. We got at 18,393. And then with the memory upgrade, or the memory overclocks, we got 18,511. And if you want to see what that test looks like, just real quick, it's fun to see all the little boxes. These are just like, they're like little worker ants. Look at them go. Look at that. And this is a test that also took forever when it still takes forever on like a 9900K. But our temperature, as you can see right now, 65C under load. Now, when I did temperature testing on this, what I did was I went in here and did a custom test where I just set it to like 10,000 seconds so it would run for like, plenty of minutes. And I let it go until the temperature stopped climbing, which is where I think our CPU loop, our GPU and CPU loop would have caught equalization. And it stopped at 74C. Didn't get any hotter than that. 74C, 32 cores, 64 threads, overclocked. That's 15 or so C less than Phil's water-cooled, well, technically AIO, 9900K will get at 8 cores and 16 threads. So whatever they're doing is amazing. But obviously we have the Phanteks Glacier block on there, which is doing a hell of a job at keeping the CPU cool. And then we've got the Glacier block that's being used on our 2080 Ti EVGA card, which we showed at the start here. But in terms of radiators, I ended up going with a 480 millimeter, 30 mil thick rad on the front and a 360 30 mil on the top. So we've got a lot of radiator surface area on here. But I just wanted to kind of iterate here that this is not the review. This is the preparation for the review. And we wait to the last minute to do these builds because there are always changes along the way. Like we get the stuff sometimes 2 weeks early, But then there's like chipset upgrades or chipset updates or BIOS updates, and then any testing you do is technically invalidated at that point. You gotta start all over. So we always wait till the very end. Coolant too, I forgot to show that. We are using the Corsair XL5, which is a pre-mixed clear that we put orange dye in, and then it used exactly 1 liter of it, and then a few drops of distilled water. Oh yeah, and the Revolt X, which I keep forgetting to mention. The Revolt X is pretty insane because it's a perfect power supply for this case. Since this case is capable of a dual system, which I showed in the review of this case, if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. I'll try and link it below, but I always forget. You can put an ITX chassis in the bottom right there. And then this power supply actually has 2 24 pins and plenty of CPU header pins so that you can actually trigger both systems off of a single power supply. So you don't have to do any jumpering and stuff, which makes the Revolt amazing. 1200 watts, 80 plus platinum, clearly gonna give us plenty of power to power our 32 core thread system here. And I don't know what the power draw is. We'll do more testing with that in the future. But now that it's up and running, I'm excited. I was trying to decide if it's time for me to kind of redo my system in the office because I've got all kinds of weirdness happening from all the hardware changes and all the OS overwrites and stuff. My system's, Phil and I were laughing at it earlier. I can't even play a YouTube video. It's just black triangles everywhere. It's all, it's stupid. My system is borked, okay? But I'm thinking I'm gonna move over to the 3960X because after seeing this, I just kind of want it. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button. It really does help. And then if you know anyone that's considering Threadripper stuff or Threadripper 3rd Gen, then share this video with them. Maybe it'll give them some build ideas. I think it all turned out really good, especially with the soft tubing, because that allows us to be able to work on the system if we need to, without being down and having to drain the whole system. I can actually get this whole motherboard and CPU out of here without having to drain the system. Don't make me prove it. I can, I've done it, I don't want to do it again. Soft tubing for ease of access to the parts in there. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. And please click the description down below to give our sponsor some support, otherwise these systems are not possible. Now I'm gonna go. It's been late. It's been late. And Phil's night's just starting. He gets to edit this.